Now that is what you call a smart camera. I need one of those cameras for my front porch. Like, so it can like tell the future and read my mind all at the same time. Sign me up. Where's it at? So I was going over Tyler's charging documents the other day, and I've noticed that there's a few things that nobody's mentioned, and it's kind of important. Also something about the jump off the roof video. Nobody's mentioned that either. And I also am trying to work on getting my video out of my theory because nobody's saying it, and it shocks me that nobody's saying it. I've already tried to once. It didn't really work, so I'm gonna try again. So please be looking for that. Okay, so this is the charging document. Besides the fact that none of this is true, all of the counts, this is talking about where the UVU officer was watching from the crowd at an elevated vantage point, and we've all seen this. So how did he not see him? As soon as he heard it, if he looked over and he could see it, why didn't he see him at all? It don't mention that he saw him. Okay, so I don't understand why the officer didn't see him. It doesn't say. It just says he rushed to look for evidence. If he heard the sound and looked, he should have seen him. But one of the few things that I found in this that I found interesting is, okay, this is the officer that's on the roof looking around. He noticed markings in the gravel. Yeah, like somebody's laying there, blah, blah. So he just noticed the railing to step over, noticed the markings in the gravel. Okay. They reviewed surveillance. And where's this video of him dropping down at 12:15? Like, I know we saw somebody's phone, like a split second of him on the roof right before, but that wasn't UVU surveillance. So where's that video? And then running across the roof and then lowering and crawling to the area where the UVU officer recognized a suspected sniper position. Where's that video? But what I was getting at, okay, and then we're going to come right back to this, where he was seen running off the roof to this video. So we'll come back to that video in just a second, but expanded crime scene investigation. Okay, well, this is just where they say in that wooded area, investigators found a bolt-action rifle, wrapped in a towel. The rifle contained one spent round and 3 unspent rounds. No shell casings were found on the roof, suggesting a bolt action rather than an auto-loading weapon, and only a single round was fired. No screwdrivers mentioned. From the officer that first was up there scoping out all the gravel moved around, he didn't notice the screwdriver. It's not mentioned anywhere. They go into all these fake claims. That's why I'm not reading it. All of that's fake. And then we know the ammunition rounds sent for processing. Well, now we know that they can't, we know they can't tie it to it because it wasn't a 30-06. So, and this is a lie. They were saying that they saw the picture on the news and thought that looked like him. No, that's not true. It was the family friend slash Boy Scout leader slash ex deputy of a sheriff friend. I don't know. Well, depending on who you ask. But this is where it gets interesting. Robinson's father reported that his wife showed him the surveillance image of the suspected shooter in the news. He agreed it looked like their son, which that's not true. He also believed, this is the important part, everybody listen up. He also believed that the rifle that police suspected the shooter used matched a rifle that was given to his son as a gift. As a result, Robinson's father contacted his son and asked him to send a photo of the rifle. That rifle, this rifle, that's not the gun. Hold on just a second. We'll get back there in a minute. Also, why, at the very least, this destroyed note had to be destroyed by Lance Twiggs. This whole note that, well, after the text, but drop what you're doing, look under my keyboard. Found a note. So they don't have the note. It was destroyed. So I don't know how they have it as evidence. And wouldn't that be tampering with evidence and destroying evidence completely, really? I mean, so why isn't Lance Twiggs getting anything? And why haven't we really seen him? We know. Police found a photograph of this note. So it's destroyed, but they found a photograph of this note. So this is all bullcrap. You don't believe it. And of course, my love, a while longer yet. I gotta grab my rifle still. Old age. And here's where he's admitting that he did it, given everything that we would need. Yes, I did it. Why did I do it? And then this is another thing that I find interesting. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. If I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. So, where's the screwdriver mentioned here? He doesn't mention the screwdriver either. What's funny is I think that after the video, which I'm going to play that clip in a second because I have to point out something, but where they say that he's got the rifle running on the roof, I think once they realized it didn't really look like it and everybody was saying that, I think that that's when they threw the screwdriver thing in after the fact. So if I'm able to grab my rifle unseen, I will have left no evidence. So there wouldn't have been any evidence. From what he said, it would have, if he got his rifle, they wouldn't have known anything. So he left it, which was smart. From a smart kid. He's smart. Oh, how long have you been planning this? Of course, he's got to tell him how long. I can get close to it, but there's a squad car parked right by it. I think they already swept that spot, but I don't want to chance it. So first of all, they already swept that spot and it was just right there. They didn't find it. The bomb dogs, it was right there where a squad car could park easy. And one was parked right beside it. Since he was watching it, because this is the truth, if we are to take their word for it. This is supposed to be the truth, right? So he's watching. He's just sitting here watching it. The bomb dogs didn't smell him standing there like nothing. Seems like y'all need to get some new puppies. Sorry. Wishing I had circled back and grabbed it as soon as I got my vehicle. I'm worried what my old man would do if I didn't bring back Grandpa's rifle. I don't even know if it had a serial number, but it wouldn't trace to me. I worry about prints. I had to leave it in a bush where I changed outfits. The only thing I left was the rifle wrapped in a towel. The only thing, no screwdriver. Remember how I was engraving bullets? Oh, remember? If I was engraving bullets and my significant partner is there while I'm engraving bullets, do you think that they're not going to ask what I'm doing? If that part's true. Okay, this is what's important here. Delete this exchange. So you said everything that will ever be needed, but you're worried about it getting out there. You're a smart kid, so we know this cannot be true. My dad wants photos of the rifle. He says Grandpa wants to know who has what. The feds released a photo of the rifle, and it is very unique. He's calling me right now, not answering. Yeah, well, we know that. So we know that this is not the rifle. Remember, it's a stock photo. So that's a lie. Right there, it contradicts itself. He didn't say that. This is not the rifle. It's not the real picture. So how did they notice it? Lie. Another one. But I also want to play... Wait for it. There. And here. What is it doing? Nobody's mentioned this. How did this camera know to zoom? Pan and zoom and follow. Because watch, it's continuing to follow. So what's the excuse? How did it know? How did that surveillance camera know to zoom in, pan, and zoom in more and follow the alleged shooter? How did it know that? Nobody's talking about this, and it's been driving me crazy. So why does it zoom and pan and zoom and keep following and tracking this one person? It didn't track and zoom the car or anybody else or the other people walking. It tracked and zoomed specifically that one person. Now that is what you call a smart camera. I need one of those cameras for my front porch. Like, so it can like tell the future and read my mind all at the same time. Sign me up. Where's it at? So now I want to go and watch the a little bit of Nate on from Valhalla on Alex Jones, or well, talking to Alex Jones, and they have Gary on there too. But I just want to kind of go over a couple of things on this. Let me pull it up.
My point is that that's not a 30-06 and 100-something yards shooting in the neck. I mean, come on, people. And so that's what adds credibility. The ATF saying, inconclusive, doesn't look at the same bullet. I get what you're saying. The Daily Mail is probably basically an MI6 cutout. But let's get Kornaki's take on this. Nate Kornacki, what are you thinking right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think me and Gary really haven't been that far off from the very beginning. We did content the first week together. I think Gary will say himself the idea of a 30-06 not creating an exit wound is extremely, extremely, extremely unlikely. We differ on some things, but let's debunk the idea that that this new report doesn't mean anything, just from a court of law standpoint, okay? Because what you're seeing people try to say is, oh, well, they can't conclusively match the round. That doesn't actually mean the round's not matched. Okay, well, we're talking about evidence in a court of law. And when you're talking about the
Thank
word
you, Nate.
conclusive, it means something in a court of law. It means you have to conclusively match, let's say, a bullet to a gun, DNA to a rifle. Otherwise, that evidence is not going to be permissible in a court of law for the prosecution. So much so that the defense is already adding this in as exculpatory evidence. If you don't know what that means it's going to change the rifle from being evidence for the prosecution to use to find Tyler Robinson guilty to the rifle being used as evidence to prove he is not guilty.
Counter that or respond to that, Gary.
Yeah, I mean, I don't doubt that it's going to be issued as and submitted as exculpatory evidence. I just, it's still going to be challenged by, like, we have so much circumstantial evidence. We have DNA evidence on the firearm, DNA evidence on the spent cartridge. We have DNA evidence on the screwdriver. We got a lot of evidence.
No, we don't. Have you looked at the evidence? And first of all, a screwdriver wasn't even mentioned to begin with. But no, we have nothing to okay, yeah, DNA on a rifle, that if he has a rifle that's his DNA should definitely be on it. So the towel, because the key evidence, the DNA evidence, is the rifle, the towel, and the screwdriver. So if the bullet doesn't go to that gun, none of that matters. They don't really have evidence. The evidence, like I said, the DNA evidence is the rifle, the towel, the screwdriver. Then there's the text messages, so-called, to his love. There's the note that was destroyed, but they got a picture of it first before it was destroyed. And then the Discord's already came out and denied that. The footage that's not conclusive either. We can't tell if that's him. The video footage, surveillance footage. And then there's the trace evidence, where there was somebody laying in gravel on the roof. That is the evidence. That is it. That's the evidence. Look it up.
Him admitting to it.
But what about a 30-06 not shooting through somebody's neck?
Yeah, look, what I've always said on this is that it's atypical. Can it absolutely happen? Yes, it can, especially once we get into some of the internal, external, and terminal ballistics of this. One of the things, what I will say is that we can't rule it out. And we have lots of examples of this, whether we're looking at, look, Martin Luther King was shot with a 30-06 at 65 yards. Now, I know there's a lot of controversy.
Yeah, it's a totally different
Martin
situation.
Luther King, but what I've never seen challenged was whether or not it was a 30-06. So he was shot at 65 yards, it hit him in the jaw, and actually hit his spine and then deflected downward. We also have somebody that both Nate and I know, Chuck Ritter. He was shot with 7.62 by 54 at 25 yards. It actually hit him in the spine, deflected downward. Not only did it not exit, he didn't die, and he stayed in the fight.
My computer crashed a couple times, guys. Not sure.
It's okay. Go ahead.
Anyway, let me go back to what I was saying about the conclusive evidence and why this is a big deal. It is a big deal in a court of law because now, as I said, I don't know where I got cut off, but if you cannot conclusively match the rifle to the gun or DNA to whatever evidence, it's no longer going to be permissible evidence for the prosecution in the court of law. And we're already seeing that with the defense that wants to now change it to exculpatory evidence, which will actually make the rifle being used as evidence to exonerate Tyler Kirk. Now, if they can actually do that, they may get the trial thrown out beforehand. We don't know about that for sure. But also, the reason why this is so important is not just that, but it's also people are completely forgetting that the murder weapon was not found at the scene of the crime. The murder weapon has to be tracked back to Tyler Robinson. It was found 300-400 meters away on someone else's private property. which means you have to be able to tie that rifle back to the actual shot. You can do that through two ways. You can do it through ballistically matching the round to the rifle used, or the DNA on the rifle matching to Tyler Robinson. Okay, well, there is DNA of Tyler Robinson on the rifle. What's the other problem? There's 6 other people's fingerprints and DNA on that rifle, which is going to make that also not conclusive, because how do you prove Tyler was one of the 7 people here whose fingerprints actually took the shot on that rifle? Can you prove that? Maybe you can prove that through, I don't know, video evidence, maybe that we haven't seen yet. But at the moment, the way it's looking is that the rifle could be completely thrown out as evidence in this trial completely. Because if you can't attach, again, the word conclusive means something in a court of law. Very specific.
Yes.
Evidence is not working. Maybe, maybe not. Maybe it matches. Maybe it doesn't. No, that's not how it works. You don't get to use that as permissible evidence against Tyler Robinson in that case. So
what is your interpretation of the ATF report? What is your interpretation of the ATF report versus Gary Melton's?
Well, I didn't get to hear what Gary said about it, but what I think is what they're saying is that there's fragmentation of the round, which I think me and Gary had talked about months and months ago. Sorry, Gary, I didn't get to see your what you were talking about. There's fragmentation of the round inside Charlie's neck, which I think we all thought, and that cannot be matched to the 30-06. That doesn't necessarily mean that that's not a 30-06 bullet. It means we can't match that fragment to that gun, which, again, in the court of law, that is going to be a big deal. But my thing is this. Now we just have a fragment, but we also had TPUSA's story, Andrew Colvett, who came out and said himself, told Stephen Gardner, who was on my channel, Officer Tatum, all these people, that what happened? Charlie Kirk was shot in the T1. That bullet traveled down his neck about 6 inches.
And I know why. Well, I'm pretty sure. I won't say I know. I have a theory, and I'm trying to get it out there. So stay tuned.
The entire bullet lodged in his, not shot in the T1, shot in the C1, traveled down and lodged in the T1 just below his, or just above his
I've got a theory for it.
Shoulder blade area. And so is there not a full round inside his body?
Well, I want to say this. 1 hour after I said, 1 hour after that came out, I reported on that, and then I had Colvett call me and say, no, I talked to the coroner. It actually went down the spine, all that stuff. I said, okay, good, I'll put that out. I'm not saying, I don't think they're involved. I'm not accusing them of anything. But I mean, that's exactly where we are, is that the story just kept changing.
So let me finish my point here, Alex. My point with this is, okay, if we're going with what the ATF says as truth, which I guess we will, we have to at the moment, and there was just a small fragment that they could pick out of that 30-06 round that they couldn't match to that bullet. So you're telling me that a 30-06 round went in, hit the soft tissue of Charlie's neck, and evaporated into basically dust, like a frangible round would. We'll talk more about that in a second. And just a tiny little fragment is all that's left, also creating no exit wound from a 30-06 from 140 meters. I mean, I know Gary will even have to admit that that's very, very, very unlikely to happen. And even with frangible rounds, I did see you mention frangible rounds, accelerator rounds, varmint rounds. We've tested them all ballistically. Between me, Dan from Heavy Duty Country, Jesse on Fire, we've tested 30-06 frangible rounds. We've tested low-grain varmint rounds. We've tested every round that can come out of the 30-06. Every single one, including the frangible, including the varmint rounds, blows straight through things way stronger than a human neck. So what I would encourage, and I'm still waiting for this, we've done our due diligence on this. We've done the ballistic testings on every type of 30-06 round that exists. We can't get a single one to not blow through straight anything way stronger than a human neck. So I would like to see someone come out and recreate the FBI narrative shot. Show me a 30-06, shoot it from 140 meters, and show me no exit wound in a ballistic dummy, and have that round lodged.
Well, let me ask this question and have Gary Melton respond, because we're trying to figure out the truth here. I think you both have credibility. What I'm asking here is about the ATF report. What is Nate Kornacki is saying that ATF report says versus what Gary Melton is saying? Because Gary, you're kind of saying they're saying it's inconclusive.
Yeah, look, they're going to throw out that element of the testing. That's what they're going to use as exculpatory evidence. They can't just throw out the rifle. They can't say, hey, we can't use this. That's not how the court of law works. They're still going to be able to submit the fact that, hey, you know what? The brass actually did match exactly to the rifle itself. They're going to have the DNA on the gun, on this spent cartridge, which I think is really important with this. And then, of course, you have, look, the strongest element of this is the parents and their testimony and what they have stated in
And what their parents have said is nothing that we know. None of it's accurate. What we know is 2% of fact. Or we know 2% of the truth. Family friend is the one that came and suggested they go turn him in. He did not. His parents did not notice him. We already went through that. So it's all just a bunch of BS, period. And, I mean, you should go and check out that full interview with, and kind of debate with Gary and Nate, which, of course, Nate shuts him down because he has no answers, and he's doing all the talking points, like Nate says, Fox talking points. They don't have anything. So stop saying that they have mountains of evidence. No, they don't. That's the problem right now, is they need an extension because they still haven't shown them the evidence, and then they drop a bunch of files that's just probably a bunch of filler. They don't have anything. And if they do end up coming up with something, I guarantee you they create it. I'm telling you, I don't believe anything because we've had so many things that are contradicting each other. But I'm working on getting my theory out there. But he was shot at least, maybe 3 times, with at least maybe 2 223s and 122. That video will be coming soon.